I will explain why, but tonight the event is mainly going to be in English. But most of this room also speaks Mandarin. 我也会讲中文. So if you have questions, you can ask in any language. But for the evening, I'm going to be using English for the presentation. Okay? Okay, so so before I get started, how many people are in B2B? Okay, how many people are in B2B sales? And then how many people are in B2B marketing? Okay, so what we usually do, let me give 1 minute on the history of Plus One Business Dinner. We started in 2020. It was an idea between me and another guy named Josh and another lady named Jane. They both had something to do tonight. Jane is in New York. But the idea is really, for Plus One, to gather a group of people to talk about this mission. All right? And it started in my living room in 2020 with like 5 people. And then before the pandemic, we had 7 Plus One business dinners. And at each one, we talked about some form of sales or marketing. You got to meet a lot of new people. And then for about 8 months, we took a break because most of Taiwan took a break because of the pandemic. And then I thought things are getting a little bit more back to normal, that we could start it up again. And since I've met more people in Taiwan, I thought we can bring more people out to here. So amongst the crowd, I hope you will take the time to kind of meet everybody tonight. There are people that work at startups, there are people that work at large companies, people at Uber, people all the way down to a Forbes Asia 100, top 100 Asia startup, right? So this is a good group of people, and I would encourage you to kind of meet. So the mission, when I got to Taiwan in 2020, so I was born in Taiwan, grew up in the US, came back, and in 2020, when I got to Taiwan, I realized 2 things. This is just my personal sharing. I realized number 1, Taiwan, startups and large companies, we create really great technology and sometimes product. Okay? So Taiwan creates some world-class technology. And then a little bit about my background. I have 20 years experience in B2B sales and also entrepreneurship. My entire career is pretty much B2B, which is what we're going to talk about tonight. And when I got to Taiwan, I met a lot of startup founders and people in large companies and small companies asking me the same question. How do I sell? Like, how do I sell my stuff? Usually they say, how do I sell to the global market? That's what they say to me, because I'm probably from, not Taiwan. So they asked me that question. And more as I talked to them, I realized that they're lacking, or when people ask this question, they're lacking a lot of the stuff that we've been taught in the United States or in other markets. Just simple stuff. It's not simple because, not simple or hard, but simple meaning like most people in B2B know this stuff. But yet in Taiwan, I found myself meeting people and they did not have this kind of exposure. So that's the second mission. With the great technology, I think that Taiwan, or I believe Taiwan seeks world-class sales and marketing leadership. And really that's what this whole thing is about, right? It's great to network, get some food, but really we come here once a month and we talk about world-class sales and marketing leadership using case studies and different thought ideas, okay? Cool. And anybody can raise your hand at any time, all right? And kind of throw some stuff in. So tonight, we're gonna spend probably 20, 30 minutes talking about the art of B2B sales negotiation. In the lower left-hand corner if you like what I say, you can take your phone and scan this, and this is the LinkedIn group for Plus One Business Dinner. So in Plus One Business Dinner, I think a lot of people are already in it. There's about 40 people right now. But in Plus One Business Dinner, the goal is to kind of share, like tonight, I'm gonna tell you about what experts on YouTube and in the world of B2B talk about negotiation. I will put these slides in the LinkedIn group. I will link to their videos in the LinkedIn group. If people have questions, if you want to network, if you're hiring, we can use that LinkedIn group. One reason that I like LinkedIn better than Facebook for this, right? Facebook events are great. Very, very robust feature. But on LinkedIn, again, back to our mission, we're trying to promote sales and marketing leadership. On LinkedIn, I can easily see who you are, what you do. And that's one reason why I really like the LinkedIn group, okay? So it'll be on every slide on the bottom left-hand corner, okay? If you like what you hear, just take your phone and put that up. Okay, so one thing about B2B sales negotiation. So who does sales negotiation? Raise your hand if you have to negotiate sales negotiation. Okay, great. That's like 80% of this room. Okay, and when you do sales negotiation, keep your hand up if you're doing B2B sales negotiation. Okay, good. This will be fun. Okay, anybody do B2C sales negotiation? Okay, I'm not really talking to you tonight, but I hope that you can take some of the lessons and kind of think about how it gets to B2C. One thing that I've learned is that B2B and B2C, in this side, you know, there's a lot of difference between B2B and B2C. Josh runs a fantastic agency, right? And I would probably say the B2C space, right? You have a lot of clients that do, so you're doing like probably B2B2C, right? So there's a lot of tips and techniques for B2C. Take those ideas and just put them aside. Tonight, we're going to talk about B2B. Okay? Before we get started, the last thing, my company, PMS Strategy. Quick 30 seconds. So Lily, you raise your hand. Lily is in the back. She works at my company. Okay? And what PMF Strategy does, very simply, is we expand your business by outsourcing your B2B sales. Oh, Ryder's here. Hey, is that Ryder? Hey, how's it going? Okay, so what PMF Strategy does is that in the new remote world, we believe that just like 20 years ago, you can outsource your engineering division, just like probably 15 years ago, you can outsource your marketing work. Now, especially with the world of Zoom and remote, I firmly believe that you can now remote B2B sales. You do not need that really older, experienced person in your office, right, doing B2B sales. You do not need that person in your office every day. I'm trying to build on this theory that I can run a process, a lot of which I'll talk about tonight, to do B2B sales, right, for your company. And that's what we do. If you're interested in any way in learning more, Lily and I can definitely answer your questions. Okay, so this is how tonight is going to work. I'm going to share 10 tips and techniques about B2B sales. And these 10 tips and techniques are from very famous people. And then I will share a few of them as part of the 10. Okay? But I will share with you what they say, and then I will try and explain what they're trying to mean in these 10 tips and tricks. One thing, as I explain it, it's really important, I talk with my team about, and I really talk, and I especially make this point when I talk to B2B clients, is that when we talk about complex things, for me, it's much easier to understand if I can talk about things at a 50,000 foot level, and then separately at a 5,000 foot level. Okay, it just helps me with my mental framework. Like if we're talking about something right now in a deal, are we talking overall general? Or are we talking about implementation, kickoff meeting? Are we using Zoom or Teams? Right? And if we jump too much, I get confused. So tonight, we're gonna split the 10 techniques in the same way. Okay? I'm gonna share with you 10 techniques, and half of them will be at a very high level, and then half of them will be at a very functional level, use case level. Okay, so I'll come back to that. These are 2 examples, right? By the way, I did these slides. I am not a designer. I am more of a get the information out. Okay. Anybody have any questions so far? Everybody still with me? Okay. So as we get into the 10, if you have any questions, like this is the time to ask. I'm going to do the first one. I promise there are very feminist people right behind this slide, okay? But I'm going to do the first one. One of the tips and techniques that I use all the time in B2B sales is when you deal with a client, you align on framework first, and then you negotiate later. When you talk to somebody in sales, especially B2B, right? You're on the phone, you're like, hey, this is what I do, here's my value, what you're paying. 9.5 times out of 10, their first question is going to be something like, what's the price? Okay, they're going to ask that first. Calix is here, right? So they're one of our clients, or we work with Calix, and in what they sell, sensors, right? We work with SIs, we work with resellers. They always ask about price first. I never disclose price first, ever. Like it is a rule. So with our salespeople and with me, right? If you ask about price, then I have to come back, and what I will do, I won't say I'm not giving you the price, but what I will do is I will try and build a framework first. Okay. Let me describe what that means. Because in B2B, it's more than just buying a particular product on that particular day at that particular time, right? So that bottle of water, if you want to buy a bottle of water, you could just say 25 NT, 30 NT, and that's our transaction. But in B2B, that bottle of water, right? Which territory are we going to sell the bottle of water? Do we have exclusivity on the bottle of water? What about volume? What about other considerations? What about shipping time? So all of these things, in fact, in our process, when somebody asks price, we return with, oh yeah, price is definitely something that is really important, totally understand. Before we get to price, there are some terms and just general conditions that we like to square off first. Is it okay if we send you that list and make sure that these terms and conditions are also important and valuable to you? Okay. Anybody do this? Or anybody have a question about that? Give me a little feedback here. Yes?
What if the client just keeps pushing back and asking, just give me the price?
Great. Like they will do that. There is a example, or there's a funny. Oh, sorry, my English is so bad right now. There is a metaphor in venture capital, but it also is the same in B2B sales. So the venture capital metaphor is great, term sheet, right? So valuation. You can tell me how much you want to invest if I tell you the payment terms, the investment timeline, right? So you could tell me how much you want to put in, valuation 5 million, great, okay? But it's 5 million over, 5 years vesting, or over 1 month vesting. So when in B2B, if somebody's like, what's the price? I would say, yeah, that's a really great question. Do you want exclusivity? Is that something you care about? They have to answer that question, right? In most B2B cases. And then they answer that one, and I say, yeah, okay, yeah, that's a good one. We have some other considerations that we need to go over. For example, territory. What is valuable to you in territory, right? And maybe they'll keep hitting price. There's always in B2B, especially in most B2B sales, well, how many are you going to order? Are you going to pay up front, or is it going to be over a long period of time? And when you start asking them those questions, right? When you start asking them those questions, they realize that I actually can't just give you a price, right? I can tell you a price, but then I need to ask you like 18 follow-ups, here's the other thing that this is really important. Super, super important. And the second thing, build on working together. So again, price. Price is always important. Most people think of, like most people, the price is the most important thing. Until, and here's B2B versus B2C. In B2B, this is how I teach B2B, this is how I do B2B. We're working together. We're not working against each other, right? So we want to have a fair deal, but I don't really like a deal in which I know I got huge value from you, I got your money, and then I know that you're not gonna really like that 6 months down. That's not a great way to do business. So now, if we're gonna work together, price is always gonna be negotiated. So what happens before you get to price? You have to build a relationship. You have to agree on simple things like, no, we don't need exclusivity. Nah, that's not part of this project. Maybe later, right? Oh, okay, we don't need exclusivity. All right, territory, worldwide or maybe just Asia? For right now, we could just do Asia. Okay, cool, great. So over those two things, over the week of emails, we just agreed on two things, right? And then 3 and 4. And then by the time we get to price, right? Pia, right? So Pia, you and I have agreed on 5 things already. Exclusivity, payment terms, territory, marketing, branding, okay? We've already done all this work. And then now at the end, okay, let's talk price. Work on building together, it's so much easier. If you negotiate on price first, that's the hardest. Okay, that's really the hardest. So that's why I say, like, do this framework. And by the way, like, this is really important. There are some other schools of thought on B2B negotiation, but most people will teach this from the beginning. Do framework first. Any other questions on this? This needs to be open. Like, we do this so that everybody gets better. Okay, so if you have a question, definitely, hey, happy. Get some pizza. Thank you. Yes. Annie.
How do you usually open a discussion talking about this framework instead of making people feel like you're trying to teach or sell to them? One step before.
Do you want to try it? Maybe we can role play. Okay, so we're on the phone. Okay. And then all you have to say. Yeah. So all you have to say is. So I do to make sure we're in a B2B setting. I'm not selling you a bottle of water.
Okay.
Right. So you are a business.
Sure.
And we're talking about a partnership in some way.
Okay.
Okay. Blah blah blah. We sell great water. Okay. Blah blah blah. Now all you have to say is how much does it cost? Or what's the price? You just say that.
What's the price?
That's a really great question. That's awesome. That price is one of those things, or price is one thing that is in a general list of considerations for us. Is it okay if I send over a general list of considerations that we can both kind of look at and agree on? Price is definitely one. I will tell you the price. I know price is really important. I'll definitely tell you the price probably by the end of today's day, this week. Well, I mentally figure out what the urgency is, right? But I say before I tell you price, it is really important that we do talk about things like exclusivity, order volume, payment terms. Is it okay if I send you that list?
Sure, sounds good. Send it over.
Awesome. So then I will send over you the list, and then maybe we can schedule a follow-up meeting on Thursday. Let's make sure we have the list right, okay? And then we can talk about price. Okay. By the way, when you do that list, okay, man, there's 10, so we're gonna go through these, but this is a biggie. So when you do that list, okay, here's the other thing that is really important. You put your framework in, you put everything you think is valuable to you, and you give them a chance to put everything they think is valuable. That has to go first. So usually I say, I'm gonna send you this list of considerations. Can you please take a look at it? And if you wanna edit anything, please let me know. If you wanna add anything, please let me know. Through that, at the end of that process, at whatever at the end of that process is, I will ask again. I will say, is there anything else that is important to you or the deal right now? And they say no. Then we go in, okay? And then we will negotiate. Then they'll say something like price, and then I'll say something like order volume, and then they'll say, oh wait, no, but we need to add this thing in. And I said, oh, we can add it in, but I thought we had agreement on the framework. And then they're like, oh yeah, but we really do need to add it in. And I would say, oh, we can add it in. I just need something else. Okay, you gotta get that framework. It'll be very, very helpful. I know we're gonna go back to that one. Number 2, okay, Deepak Malhotra. If you don't know this guy, you should look for, watch his YouTube. He's on a lot of YouTube videos. He's a Harvard HBS professor for like 15 years. He may be the dean, I think. I've watched a lot of, in preparation for tonight, I watched over 100 YouTube videos. Not all in full, but I did like go through like 100 YouTube videos. And he has a lot. This one, that one at the bottom, it is 46 minutes. He shares 21 tips for negotiating. It's fantastic. I would really highly recommend watching that video. One of his tips is, I know a lot of people who talk too much in a negotiation. I know almost no one who asks too many questions in a negotiation. This is all about listening, right? In a B2B negotiation, you are there to listen, to ask the right questions, to uncover pain, to find value, to establish where you are. You do all of these things by listening. If you talk too much, if you go in there with a plan and an agenda, and you talk too much, you either will not get the deal, or you're gonna get the lower end version of the deal. All right. So it's important that in a B2B, even sales call or demo, right? Like you know you're gonna do a demo, you're gonna do the demo, but uncover first before you do the demo. What do you guys think about this? Anybody have any experience with this that you want to share? Yes.
What if you just meet prospects that are from a culture that's super reserved and they don't ever talk about their real needs, or they don't even want to admit they have a problem?
Yeah, so that's a great one, right? And so, or language barrier, right? There's a lot of different examples. But if you're going to be a good partner, then that person does have to also be a good partner, you know. Like if there are, I guess, if you go in and you're in that scenario, and for whatever reason, I just want the price, I just want to see the feature, I just want this, I just want that. What would I do? I would evaluate. There are some advanced techniques here. Like, I went through a lot of pitch coaching in my career, and not sales coaching, investment coaching. And I would not do this at every time, but an advanced technique would be, you know, hello, sir, madam, whatever, Sue, right? I totally understand that today you want to kind of learn about our product. That's fantastic. I just want to make sure this is the best use of your time. We do have 30 minutes today, right? Yes. Okay. Do you mind if I ask you just 2 questions? And that way that we get the best value out of our time today. And if they just keep pushing, the super advanced reverse psychology Jedi mind trick is like, I'm sorry, I don't think we're going to be good partners. So I don't think that this is the right fit. Because, by the way, you don't know what, like, if you don't know their pain, you don't know why they're on the call. They could be like researching your product. You know, they could be doing all sorts of stuff. If you're not going to be good partners, you can pull that out. You can be like, I'm not sure this is the right time for us today. You know. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, perfectly. Also, just on that note, I heard about someone said that you can also like suggest something smart, like to make a smart assumption about their need, and all they have to do is to say yes or no. And so that makes it much easier, and then people are easier to say yes or no. And then this will remove that language barrier a little bit.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I do have a different question.
Yeah. Yeah.
On the previous slide, so does that work against open pricing on the website? You just don't want to like a standard price on a website at all?
So open pricing on a website. Okay, great question. So typically, right? Okay, so B2C does open pricing for the most part, but even in B2C, when you get into the enterprise, call us for pricing, right? And so like you can do B2B2C, and you can have that pricing, and then that gets more transactional. That's like inside sales, get one and done, right? Something like that. But if we're talking about enterprise B2B, then I am absolutely against open pricing on a website. Yes, I'd rather do freemium and then consultative pricing than stacked layered pricing, $19.99, $29.99, whatever. Yeah, so here, this. If you're not closing deals, just go back to your calls. If you're talking 70-80% of the time, this is one, I don't know if it's the only reason, but it's one reason why. By the way, there is one thing, I won't talk about this too much, but I watched this video, I heard it, and I'm like, man, that's awesome, right? Like, I mean the quote. I know a lot of people talk too much in a negotiation. I know almost no one who asks too many questions in a negotiation. That's a great quote. There's one exception that I think this is bad in the closing phase of the deal. If you're ready to close, if you've got that person, they're ready to they're ready to sign, don't ask too many questions. Get the paper, get it signed, bye-bye, hang up the phone, bye, I'm out, see you, right? Like, you can talk your way out of a deal very easily, and a lot of times, if right at the end, you've got a deal, and you're like, oh yeah, what about this other, oh, we got this other feature coming up. No, don't do that. You should have positioned the feature earlier, okay? So, asking questions is great in discovery, not so good at the deal close phase. Let's keep going. That's a good one. Okay, so Will Muri, I recently discovered him. He's famous. He wrote a book in the 80s called Getting to Yes. There's a follow-up called Getting to Know. He's super famous, right? And I'm starting to learn more about him and reading his stuff. I just chose this one because I thought it was really good. One of the things that he says is when you do B2B sales, again, this is the partnership. We need to be writing their victory speech for them. So the basic, basic in the like Gen Z way, like the super basic way of thinking about this is, yeah, we want to be good partners, right? Of course. Yeah, we're B2B, and we want to be good partners. I don't want to like fight you on this. We want to be good partners. Okay. The advanced idea here is not, yeah, we want to be good partners. It's like, hey Julian, what would it be like if we got this deal closed for you? Like, how does that help you in this quarter? Or how does that help you? Do you have an executive meeting? Like, do you present an executive meeting? Can you help me understand? Like, if we got this deal done, what does that mean to you? Okay, like that's the advanced stuff, and that's where like I ask questions, I know your intention and your position and your incentives so well that I'm telling you this. And you're sitting back going, I would love to say to my CEO that I got this reseller agreement. Right? Okay. So we need to be writing their victory speech for them. Any questions or thoughts? Okay. Right. Okay. All right. We'll move on to the next one. Bernie Brenner. Okay. So this one, Bernie is the co-founder of TrueCar. So if you're in the U.S., TrueCar was like $1 billion. I believe went public. It was the early version of a lot of the rent vehicles, right? Where you can share vehicles. So he was a mentor and advisor at Capital Factory in Austin. I had a startup, I had 2 startups in Capital Factory. He wrote a book called The Sumo Advantage. So I would highly recommend this book. The book is all about B2B, and the book is the point of the book is that startups actually have a huge advantage when doing B2B engagements versus large companies. And he explains why. If you think like, hey, I'm American Express, I am Facebook, you know, I have the advantage in BD. He explains why it's not the case. Okay, so I really would highly recommend that book. One of the things in the book, one of the things that he talks about is the difference between sales and BD. Taiwan gets this wrong all the time, by the way. Most people get this wrong, but Taiwan especially gets this wrong. Okay, in B2B, sales is about transaction, turning over, selling. Ray, what's up? Selling and sales, right? The point of sales is that I have something to sell. I have a lot of people to sell it to. I need to tell you my pitch. I need to close this deal. And in order to do that, I want to hear your decision as fast as possible. Hence, I want to get to know as fast as possible. Okay? Like, I want to have a good process. I want to learn your reasons. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I want to hear no. I'm going for the no. What is the obstacle? What is the obstacle? What is the obstacle? Okay? BD, business development, is not sales. It is fundamentally different for the most part in BD. BD is about that long-term relationship. It's about building something together. And so BD is, you know, hey, Annie, right? We're talking about the water earlier. Okay, so what can we do about the water? And then Annie, you say like, well, maybe not the water. I don't like the water because, I don't know, why don't you like this water, Annie?
On the sparkle.
Oh, you want the sparkling water? Okay, great. If I'm sales, I'm like, I understand. We don't carry sparkling water. Annie, let me refer you to my buddy, Sparkling Water Co. Blah blah blah. But I understand. Okay. If we're in BD, I'm like, Annie, okay, I understand. Sparkling water. I could see how that's valuable for your business. So we may work on sparkling water. So why don't we keep in touch? And maybe I contact you in like 2 months, maybe in the next quarter, and I can give you some updates on our product pipeline. How about that? How about we put a meeting on the books? Okay. So in that case, I don't want you ever, until I'm ready, I don't ever want you to say no to me. I just want to keep you on that line, right? You say no to me as BD, I'm done. But sometimes for BD, like it'll take a year, it'll take 2 years. And all I'm doing is just kind of pivoting, looking, working, okay? But I don't want to hear no. Sales, I want to hear no as fast as possible. This is really important. Anybody have any questions over this? Any thoughts or comments?
I would say there is much more people than doing business development than doing sales in B2B. Because in B2C is more sometimes one shot, you want to make the deal as soon as possible.
Yes.
In B2B is more, yeah, you have to take time because it's a long-term relationship.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, fundamentally, right? Now, why do I say Taiwan gets this wrong? Okay? I'll rephrase. Taiwan gets this wrong the way that I describe it, which is a lot of how B2B does it, okay? But Taiwan says BD is really sales account management. A lot of Taiwan companies say, I'm in BD, I do BD. What are you doing? You are taking the existing accounts of that company from previous years, and you are just making sure they're happy and then re-signing them for the next year. And that's called developing business. Yes, in a way, I guess you can call that BD. Not in my world, and not in most of enterprise sales, right? BD, as this is defined, or sorry, as I'm defining it, BD is new channels of business, new business development. right? It could be a reseller, it could be IP licensing, it could be a different territory, it could be a different pricing model, it could be something that's new. By the way, okay, cool, so we'll get into this a little bit more. So typically how this works is that BD, right? BD will open a new channel. They'll take a year, 6 months, a long time. And then what they'll do is they'll figure out how to close, they'll open the channel, and then they'll probably sell the first 1 or 2 deals in that channel. Because they gotta test it, they gotta test the price, they gotta test all of it. Once they do that, then they have a playbook, okay? And then what happens from there, right? I'm BD, I'm like, great, I open a channel, I can sell it, I have my playbook now, I know what happens. Then I give it to the SVP of sales, and when he or she has an army of people to do everything that I just did, and that is sales. The sales comes behind BD. Once BD opens the channel, proves it, and then sales is just boom, boom, process, right? That's scalable B2B enterprise sales. So when people say, I'm BD, or what do you do? I'm BD sales. Okay, cool, what do you do? I have 2 accounts. They've been around for 10 years, and I renew them. Like, okay, in my book, that's kind of sales, right? Like that's sales account management. Okay, well, are you opening a new business? No channels. Anybody have any feedback on that, or thoughts, questions? This is one of the things that I want to bring to Taiwan. I mean, like, I'm not saying like I want to bring to Taiwan, but this is one of the things I talk about in Taiwan. Because it is so unclear to me a lot of times when I talk to people when I'm hiring, when I'm learning the business, and they say they're in sales or they're in BD, I'm not sure what you're doing or what you are, right? But as I was learning and I was trained, that's how we run that process, BD into sales. We'll get back to that.
A question.
Yes.
Yeah.
Alex.
So basically, from my experience, as a sales, you just need to promote and sell your product, and you can get the money right away. Right, so it's really fast to earn money. But as a BD, you need to make long-term relationship with your customers. So how do you make money or earn money during these long-term periods?
It's different types. Great question, Alex.
Yeah.
So in fact, it's actually 2 different types of thinking. Oh yeah, when we started at PMF, I used to say, hey, I'm putting on my sales hat in like stand-up calls. Because it was so important that they knew what I was trying to do. And I would say, I'm taking sales hat off, BD hat is going on. It's 2 different types of people, okay? So if I'm sales, I don't care about BD. Like, I have a target, I go and hit my target, I run my process, I do the thing that I do well, and then I drive my Mercedes and hopefully my Tesla home. That is what I do. The best salespeople, they have that tunnel vision focus. They just do one thing well. They just do it well. Those are the best salespeople. BD people are a little bit more creative, right? They think about more things. They gotta work through obstacles. They gotta bring people together. What BD does not like, generally, what BD does not like is doing the same thing over and over again every day. A BD person will be like, oh my God, another cold call. No, come on, another phone call. I don't want to do this anymore. A BD person will just think. They'll be like, think about other things that they can do, other channels, other regions. Sales. You do the same thing over and over again. You succeed, you drive your Tesla, and then maybe later on you drive the Lambo. By then you're probably director of sales or SVP sales, right? BD, typically, so sales comp is usually 50-50 in the US, so you have on-target earnings. Half of it is salary, half of it is commission that you can make, OT 50-50. BD depends. There's more in your salary. So you may be like 80-20. You may be 90-10. Like, and you are probably not held to the quarterly sales target. You are usually, depending on size of company, held to like the overall revenue goal, or there's some other defined goal. How many channels, right, to sell? So BD is more longer term, right? Both are really important. most of the time, a B2B salesperson, B2B sales or BD person is good at one or the other most of the time. It's just kind of, or at least they have to focus on one or the other. Okay, like most of the time, like you either know you're a good salesperson, you're lucky or you're the creative person, you're the BD person. Okay. You know what they call somebody that's good at both? Yes. Yes. Great product leaders. All right, we'll put it that way. Great product leaders. Okay, a really good person that can do both. Usually, that's the revenue side of a founder or CEO or a product leader. Yeah.
I just wonder if you have any opinion on whether it's easier to train a sales into a BD or vice versa.
I wouldn't do either. Like, I mean,
If you had to choose.
wait. So you're let me
So if
understand
you found a
the question.
BD and you train him into a sales or her, or you found a sales and train that person into BD, which one would you choose?
Are you doing it because they're trying to do career change, or are you doing it because they suck at sales?
Could be different, based on company stage, you might want to find a BD first who's great at opening channels and conversations, but later you need sales, so do you convert that person into sales or not?
So I guess my thing is, again, like I'm looking for a super specific set of skills, and if I hire somebody to be sales, and then I realize that they're actually more creative, right? They don't do the daily activity. I've got to immediately remove them from sales, that position. Maybe they are very creative, and that switch can happen. You can get them to be BD, right? And I think the same will be vice versa. But like, it's up to me to identify, like, hey, this person is not a salesperson. They're really BD. They're coming and talking to me about different territories, different ideas. Yeah. Yeah, and then in terms of the execution, like in terms of execution, I don't know. Like I probably would not say there's probably one way easier than the other. It depends on the person. Yeah, Roger.
You know, just a quick feedback. I think from the past experience, definitely the latter. So sales transitioning to BD is easier than vice versa. I think a few things, because I think a great BD needs to be a great sales before he or she turns to BD. Because if someone cannot close a deal he or she herself,
Yes.
then it's very very hard for this person to develop a long-term business planning. But I think the key challenge though for a salesperson to transition into BD is about his or her expectation on compensation.
Yes.
Because normally, right, a top sales can earn a lot, right? So those people are tend to have that kind of structure of their compensation. So they will focus on personal win, right? But for BD, that you need to think about how do you develop business for a company. So normally that they are not the key driver. Of course, money is important, but it's not the entire their motivation. So that's just a quick feedback. And another things I think the key metrics that between sales and BD they care are slightly different. For example, right, sales only care about top line, right? How many revenue I generate, what is the TCV, ACV I generate, right? But for BD, normally I think if you are a real BD, that you need to care about the P&L. For example, right, if I sell this deal to this company, but I need to cost, let's say, more than 200% of the cost, then my bottom line will be negative.
Yeah.
Then I won't do that. I will probably use another negotiation strategy to sort of shift the deal, because I also need to discuss with the customer success with the consultant to make sure that can be delivered. So I think the mentality and also key measure will be also slightly different. Yeah, just some stuff to
Yeah, that's
share.
great feedback. Yeah. Anybody want to add on to that, or any other feedback? I would say one last thing is like, as a executive, as a founder, right? Like, if you find yourself in a position where you are trying to have salespeople do BD and they're not qualified, or the vice versa, I would say get yourself out of that position, like soon. It's not good. Okay, it's good to think.
Sorry.
Yeah.
If I direct to ask one question,
Sure.
like I said, for the sales role, in my opinion, it includes at least two versions. first is selling to new clients. Second is selling some new features or products or service to
Mhm.
the existing clients.
Yes.
So how will you like differentiate these two?
Great question. So the question is, in sales, there's two kind of ways, or two, let's say, groups. One is new sales, and then one is new features or selling to existing clients. Okay, so there are different ways of doing that. A lot of times, now you're really talking about the sales process. A lot of companies will do an inside sales cycle. So you will do inside sales. So basically you have a person that closes new business, and then you have an account executive, an AE, who's also sales, that will close recurring business, right, longer term business. In some models, you'll have one salesperson do the whole thing. Typically that's hard, okay, like that's harder. What I mean by that's harder is you have to prospect, you have to close somebody, and then you have to then put on a different hat, and then you have to renew and do all that kind of thing, right? A lot of companies will split that apart, but it's still all kind of sales. It's still all kind of sales. Did I answer your question?
Yes, because I did the whole process.
You did the whole, yeah.
So I know that's hard.
Yeah, it is hard. But it, sometimes you have to do it. If you have a small company, you have to run that whole thing. But as you grow and scale, you can think about having your inside sales and your AE function. Okay. One that I really like, that I kind of talked about. So we talked about, who knows what anchoring is? Anybody know what anchoring in a negotiation is? What's anchoring, Julian?
I know that when you negotiate, when you negotiate about the price,
Yeah.
the first price you will give will actually anchor the people to that price. And yeah, when you get that first price,
Yeah.
you negotiating from that price actually. So it's really important this price is the way to communicate first.
Yeah, that's right. So I'll use whiteboard real quick. So what Julian is saying is, right, in a negotiation, people ask this question, should I give the price first or should the other person give the price first? This is always kind of a debated topic. I listened to a video with Mark Cuban, and he was like, I always want the other person to give the price first. But that Deepak Malhotra is like, I'm totally fine having them give the price first, or giving the price first. But anchoring is if you give the price first, or actually I guess it's either way. You give the price much higher or much lower than what you ultimately want, because you're already starting to negotiate. So if I'm giving the price first, and I want to buy something at 100, then I open at 200. Why do I open at I open at 200 with the expectation that we will end at 150. Right, something like that. That's anchoring, right? So I guess, sorry, in this scenario, I really want it at 150, and then I open at 200. That's anchoring, and I can go the other way. Okay, so most people talk about anchoring in terms of pricing, in terms of dollar, in terms of number. I'm gonna anchor with a dollar amount, right? I'm gonna anchor high or low. This is something that I've started talking about. I think I just do it. But in my case, again, if you go back to my number one, I don't really like talking about price without terms and conditions. So I don't really like giving price at all, like in that conversation, until terms and conditions. So then how can I anchor if I don't talk about the amount? And for me, framing the problem is the very first anchor for me. So if I get your value and your pain correct, man, did I just anchor really well. Okay? So, yes?
Then if you do that, like if you frame the problem first, then that's the anchor thing. But when it comes to price, then you can go up.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I do. I was just telling my friend,
Yes.
like I frame the problem, I
Yes.
listen to them, I get no questions, then I tell you that would be a little bit more expensive.
Yep.
I send a new proposal.
Then you can send that proposal, right? One of my old mentors, he has one of these slides later. His name's Bob Fabio in Austin, again at Capital Factory. In '88, he sold his company Tivoli in 1988 to to Microsoft for 1.2 billion. This is like 88. He put Austin on the map. That started Austin Ventures, everything. He was the first check in my last startup. He was a board member and he was an advisor. I don't know this guy other than just meetings. And when he invested into my company, he said, I will put in the first check, I want the advisor role, I want the board member seat, and I want you at my office every 2 weeks. And I said, okay. And we did that for 2 years. And he taught me so much about B2B sales. Here's how he talks about framing the problem and the pain. And then I've just done it, I expanded into anchoring. But he's like, imagine, right, we're here, and then you have a cut on your arm, right, a little cut on your arm. And I'm here, and I'm going, hey, Julian, man, that cut looks like a scratch. You know, how does it feel? Right? And you're like, oh yeah, it's a scratch, right? At that point, what can I sell you? A Band-Aid, right? But you have a cut on your arm. Oh, hey, Julian, man, that cut, holy cow, that's getting a little bit bigger, right? And man, weather is getting cold, right? I see it's actually dripping a little bit. Do you want some gauze? Okay, or do you want some antiseptic? What can I sell you now? I can sell you the antiseptic, higher price, right? Especially if you look at it and you're like, oh yeah, this is getting pretty big. And something I always say, oh, that's not just a cut, it's a little bit bigger. Oh yeah, it's not just a cut. What did I just do? I just priced up out of the Band-Aid territory. And
Try to capture basically more value when visiting a company. What do they need? Okay, I need that, but maybe I can offer this and that.
Yes, that's right. But I'm anchoring, and it's really important. Like when I say this stuff, when I say it, you have to agree. That's the key. That's framing without money. So now the third one is like, oh, Julian, right? Like that cut on your arm. Holy cow! Like that's kind of bleeding. I see it. I just read an article last week that there's like gangrene going around in the community. Holy F! You should get that checked out, right? I got a car.
I mean,
I can take you there.
It's working if I'm not so knowledgeable about the problem, but let's say I'm a doctor, I will tell you, okay, shut the fuck up. I mean, I just do it and that's
tell
fine.
me more. Like, how does this work? I don't. Yeah, you are a doctor, right? Like, that's great.
If I'm knowledgeable about that, I say, okay, this is a really small thing. I can just deal about that with the bandage. So just give me the bandage and that's it.
Oh, okay. Like this type of Band-Aid? Or like, I read another article, like, can you maybe teach me a little bit about Band-Aids? Like, is this the right one? I thought the one that the Band-Aid that you want for that cut is actually the one with the two-layer thing, right? Is that the one, or is this one? Like, help me understand a little bit.
Yeah, maybe I will talk more about that.
Now we're working together, and then now I'm starting to, even if I'm in Band-Aid territory, I can start pricing up a little bit more. But yeah, in your scenario, yeah, you're a doctor. But if you're not, then I'm selling you. I didn't even need to say $1. I anchored.
What I read in an interesting book, I don't recall what was the author, is you have to measure the best alternative of the person you're speaking with, basically.
Yeah.
And according to that, if of course we are on Friday evening, there is no shop around open, and you want to sell me a bandage, and we say, yeah, of course, I mean, give it to me.
Right. Yes.
If I'm in front of a convenience store and telling, yes, that won't be the same.
That's right. Yes. That's right. Nimi, you got something?
Yeah, it just happened to me this week because I consult for the maritime industry.
Okay.
So different services, but the one that actually makes money is litigation. I'm not a lawyer. I just sell lawyer services. So I charge the money, then I pay the lawyers in the back, of course. So it happened to me this week because I sent a proposal to a ship owner. His vessel has been fined by one international flag for $700,000.
Okay.
So it's fine and it's definitive. So I know that I know what is the problem. So I told him, listen, this is a final resolution. You have to pay for that. Now I have a solution. Pay me X amount of money. So I will study the entire case, and my goal will be to find mistakes in the process. If I find one, I request the Supreme Court the cancellation or modification of the process, right? Then I was like, I made a proposal, right? This is the first stage.
Yep.
This is what I'm gonna do. This is how much it costs.
Yep.
Now, second step or stage gonna be this one, and it's 400% more than the fee of that initial step.
Yep.
And the client is like, are you mad? Are you out of your mind? How come I'm gonna pay you 4 times more from the initial one? I was like, because then if I tell you that I can do it, then you need to make a decision whether or not you want to move to the second step. If
Right.
you don't want, that's your problem.
Right.
I'm telling you, you can do it.
Right.
And if we move together, I will win.
Right.
But they are like, why? How come?
Right.
So I'm still pushing, and then I push for like 2 days, and then I'm just waiting.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Okay, anybody else? Any other? Okay, so what we're gonna do next, so as I said before, there's 10 techniques today. So I just covered 5, and I covered the high level, like the high idea ones. We're gonna take a quick break. Okay, so here, please. I do think it's good everybody get some water, go to the restroom. Let's just take a 5-minute break and to save some time, and then like say hi, come back in 5, and then I'll do the 5,000 foot level techniques. Okay. All right, and I'll play some J Chat. Okay. All right. 5-minute break. One more reminder: if you want these slides, then join the LinkedIn group +1 Business Dinner. And you can join by just using this QR code here at the bottom. So I'll put these slides in the group, and then I'll also probably put some videos in there too. Okay. All right, cool. So let's get into this. Oh, how many people enjoyed or thought it was helpful, the previous techniques? Good. Okay. Anybody? No. Okay. Well, nobody's gonna answer. You might answer the other one. All right, here we go. Number 6. Negotiate at the same level. Don't negotiate against yourself. There's a missing word. Negotiate at the same level. That's what that means is that if you are the CEO and you are at this level, and suddenly you talk to the other person and they're the VP, you're not negotiating at the same level. You're at a disadvantage. Why is that? Does anybody know?
Because when the next time they bring out their CEO, you'll have a disadvantage.
Yes, but why?
We have less buffer.
You have less buffer. What do you mean by less buffer?
As Albert said, like they bring up a CFO, a CEO, they have more buffer to.
They have more buffer. Okay. Tell me more. You're missing one thing. Okay, so if you are the CEO and you're negotiating against their VP, you're at a disadvantage.
Essentially, you're the big gun already, right? And then you're competing against, or like you're dealing with someone who is the big gun on their side yet. So if they pull out their big gun, then you're kind of like, this is like,
Kind of. No.
2 things. I need to negotiate at my level because I need concrete, quick decisions. Second, if I negotiate with the VP, he has his own interests and goals in front of the CEO, so he might change, adapt, or accommodate our talk, our negotiation to please or gain something from the CEO. Kind of.
Maybe. Lily, did you want to say?
Because if you're CEO and you talk to the VP might say, oh, I have to go back to talk to my CEO. And you are the CEO, so you might be the decision maker. So you're like, 就是没有退路了.
That's the reason. So I'm the CEO, you're the VP. We're negotiating really hard. We finally get to something. And what do you say? Let me go check with my boss. And what happens next week? You come back and you undercut my price. That's it. I'm the CEO, you're the VP. You push, right? Right? You cannot say, like, I cannot say, I'm the CEO. I cannot say, let me go check with my
Wife.
That's the real CEO, right? Then that's the real CEO, right? I cannot go check with anybody. You put me on the spot. You will put me on the spot. I have to make that decision. I mean, I could say, let me think about it, but I can't go back to somebody else. that's negotiating, and that's one way of negotiating against yourself. And it's one way that you're always in a weaker position. Does that make sense? Or anybody have any questions around that? Yeah.
How about the CEO has board of directors to report to?
Man, okay, yeah, so,
Because that's
I
fine,
guess you're the
right?
CEO. Let me talk to your board. Let me just talk to your board directly. Who am I talking to right now? Let me talk to your board then. Right? You always want to meet with the decision maker. Okay, so right now, I am not the CEO of my company, or our clients. So I'm usually the VP. So now, let's flip it. This works really well. I close a lot of deals this way. Okay, so now I'm the VP, and then I'm really usually talking to the decision maker on their end. And so now we're negotiating really hard. I have the advantage. So in that negotiation, I would say, great, I got to check with my VP or my CEO. And then suddenly I go back. This is actually what I'll do, right? We're right at the end of the negotiation. And then right at the end of the negotiation, and then we're at one last point. Maybe it's price. Maybe I want 200, you say 100. Okay. Talking. You make the decision, I don't make the decision. I'll say, all right, let me go talk to Bob. Okay, I'm ready, I can talk to Bob. But before I talk to Bob, let me make sure I understand you correctly. If you say 150, do we have a deal? I can't guarantee that Bob will say 150, but at 150, do we have a deal? You have to make that decision right now. You say yes, I go to the CEO, I'm like, Bob, come on, 150, come on, 150. They already said yes, come on, 150, right? But I always have a backup, and you don't. So negotiate at the same level, if you can. If you can.
Yeah, because there is always, when you're working with big company, there you have the advantage as a big company because you have always a lot of people on the top of you. You can say, okay, I need to have it check with my manager, or the legal need to validate it, and they can drag it for quite a long time.
Exactly.
When you are in the startup, of course, you are like three in the company.
Yep.
CEO is coming quite quickly on that.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, but know this though, understand what is happening. Understand this so you don't get in that position, right? Even at a big company or even at a startup, it's the same, unless you're a one-person startup. You always have another person, right? So understand what is happening in these negotiations. Try and negotiate at the same level, don't negotiate against yourself. Or, right, if you want to be in the advantage, then send your VP. You don't do the deal, send your VP. I have a VR client, and Jeffrey, and I tell him this all the time. He does want to be in those deals. He's more of a creative person, so he's not a salesperson by by training. He's a really good business person, but he goes on feelings, and it's his company. And we will talk to these big projects. Right? And he's like, oh, I talked to their blah, 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 and we really want to do that project. And I'm like, how did that call go? And then he tells me about the call, and they start talking, then they talked about pricing on that very first call. And I'm like, and then the other person is not the CEO, it's the VP. And then I'm like, Jeffrey, we're positioned very wrong right now. You are now talking pricing with that VP, so you have to continue that. Right? And now that VP is going to go back, and lo and behold, we do 6-figure, 7-figure US deals, and a lot of times, right, that VP comes back with a low or more ask. And I know this one big deal we were working on, there's a one thing that's actually conflict, and we're a startup, they're a bigger company, and Jeffrey is trying to negotiate this, and it's actually a conflict. It's a thing of conflict in our deal, in our contract. And they said, talk to our CFO, talk to our legal, talk to our other VP. Jeffrey's like, can I just have a call with the CEO? No. The others, for 6 months, the other side said no. So even to this day, we've never talked or met the other their CEO. They paid us well into seven-figure dollar territory, $1 million US. We've never been able to talk to their CEO. And yet, every time we bring up these points of conflict, the other side is always like, oh man, our CEO, guys, he's really hard to work with. He just wants this thing. Like it's something personal to him. It's not even rational anymore. He just wants this thing. Jeffrey, you have to give. And Jeffrey's like, what are you, like, this isn't even like logic anymore. You guys are just telling me he gets what he wants. Yeah. And Jeffrey's like, can I just talk to him? No. They do not even make him available. And they let the lieutenants throw out these crazy things. Right? They play that game really well. Okay, next. Deepak, again, ignore the ultimatum. Before I watched this video, I had never thought about this. And in that video, that same one, everybody know what an ultimatum is? Like, take this price or leave it, or do this. And so in the video, Deepak says like, you know, what happens when somebody makes you an ultimatum? What are you supposed to do? Like, you're in a bad position. Yeah, you know, what do you say? And it's great, it's brilliant. He's like, just ignore it. If it's in an email, don't even respond, right? What he means is, if it's a real ultimatum, they'll probably say it many, many times. Ignore it all. He also says, like, they'll also say something that's not just the ultimatum. They'll say something else around the deal. Deepak will just respond to the other parts, completely ignoring the ultimatum. The reason is because he's like, again, in BD, okay? There may be a time that in the future, things change, situations change, and you suddenly can do what you said 6 months ago you could not do. Maybe things happen. And in that time, the last thing that I want you to remember is that you made me an ultimatum that you couldn't do it. If I acknowledged it 6 months ago, suddenly you made an ultimatum and now you are deciding, oh my God, right? Like, what do I say next? And then the next thing, right, so that's one, and then he adds in, he's like, and the additional thing is, I want you to know that I did a really smart thing by ignoring your stupid ultimatum 6 months ago. And so now we're in a good position to now shift the deal. Okay? So he says, people make ultimatums, just ignore it. This is pretty advanced. Like when I saw it, I was like, oh. Anybody have any feedback or thoughts on this? Yeah.
I think the reason is that people usually want to make deals right away. So they want just make expense. They don't want to wait for the potential possibility for the future. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's why it makes sense.
Yep. And by the way, like, I'm presenting these things for you to think about, right? Like, I will say people do things different ways. These are just ideas that you can kind of think about and take back, you know, and that's all I'm doing. I saw it and I was like, oh, gave me something to think about. Okay. Labeling, okay, Chris Voss. Who knows who Chris Voss is? Man, who's Chris Voss?
So he's the master negotiator. So he used to be like in the FBI or something like that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so Chris Voss is the former lead negotiator for the FBI. And he led their training, he did hostage negotiation for the FBI. In the last, I don't know, he retired from the FBI a while ago. And he now has a consulting company called the Black Swan Consulting Company. And they advise on business deals and you know, really hard negotiations. He has a master class, which I watched. That's how I first met him, or not met him, know of him. And then he has a book called Never Split the Difference. I would highly recommend these. I would say, has anybody, raise your hand if you've ever watched a Chris Voss thing. Okay. So I would recommend watching some Chris Voss things. I would say, again, like I'm just giving you guys things to think about. I actually don't believe in half of what he says. Sorry. Half of what he says, I would not use in my way. But his stuff is really, really good. It's just not my style. I wouldn't use it, but it's really, really good. Okay? There are two things that he talks about in which he's famous for. If you say Chris Voss in B2B sales, people say, oh, mirroring, okay, or labeling. And I'll share them with you right now. So, does anybody have any idea what label or mirror means? Labeling or mirroring? Okay, so let's do mirroring first. That's the easier one. So, at a high level, at a 50,000 foot level, what Chris is trying to do is for you to listen, and then he's trying to let you get your emotion out. Again, he's a hostage negotiator, so he's really trying to get you to talk out your emotion. That's his point, which I definitely agree with, believe in, right? Ask questions. But mirroring is taking the last 3 words of everything you say and just saying it back to you, so that you will say more stuff. Okay? I'm not good at either one. I have my own style of doing this, but I will try now. Okay, so Leland, tell me about your day. What did you do? What did you do for lunch? What did you eat for lunch today?
My aunt took my family out to a buffet in Grand Hyatt.
Say again.
My aunt took us out to Grand Buffet.
Oh.
Grand Hyatt buffet.
Grand Hyatt buffet.
Yeah, it's like all you can eat buffet.
Oh, all you can eat buffet. Fine, don't get buffet. But in this case, okay, in this case, you would continue telling me about the buffet. Okay, let's try somebody else. Leland's part of the FBI, and it's my.
It's past my bedtime.
Past your bedtime? So it's this idea in a conversation in which you just take usually the 1 to 3 words. Like he literally says the last 3 words of what somebody says. There's one more technique with mirroring. Okay, you can go up or you can go down. Okay, so let's try that. Maybe you'll be a better mirroring partner. Tell me about, I don't know, tell me about your favorite pet or your best friend.
Cool. So my favorite pet, I used to have an English bulldog. His name is Coda, and he recently passed away.
Oh, he recently passed away.
Yeah, he got a heat stroke. He had a heat stroke.
He had what?
A heat stroke.
A heat stroke?
Yeah. So it's really hot in the Philippines.
Yeah, so right? So the inflection up and the inflection down is the technique on mirroring. The inflection up is a question to try and get you to say more, right? A heat stroke? Oh yeah, it's really hot in the Philippines, blah, blah, blah. The inflection down is a statement, right? I'm trying to connect with you on a statement level. Oh, he passed away, right? And then now that's an inflection down, we're connected, and then you keep saying your next thing. So like mirroring, that's mirroring. Like that is the technique of mirroring. If you watch his master class, he's like, mirroring works everywhere, like in relationships, in negotiations, blah, blah, blah. He really, really preaches mirroring. What do you guys think? What's that?
I think it actually works better in a relationship.
Because we're hostage.
If you're listening.
Yeah, you're listening and then you have to label that emotion. And so you feel acknowledged.
That's
Maybe
exactly
less so in a B2B sales conversation.
Maybe you guys become a partner, right? Have to like continue down, yeah. But I will say like his inflection up and down it's a cool thing. In the master class in his book, he talks about when he's on a phone with a hostage, okay? And one of the techniques he uses is It's what he calls like the 5 a.m. DJ books. And what that does is it diffuses the situation. Okay? So he's like, we're in a hostage negotiation, everybody's tempers is up and running, high, and people are yelling at each other. And then suddenly, I turn into my 5 a.m. DJ voice. And whatever you say, I'm gonna inflect down. Oh, no, we'll get you out of this. Not, we'll get you out of this. It's, no, we'll get you out of this. Everything's gonna be okay. And he's like, there's an inflection down, right? So you can watch it, he's got a ton of YouTube videos. But that's one way to use an inflection of voice to lower the temperature of a conversation, okay? All right, so that's mirroring. Mirroring is the easy one. Labeling is harder. So labeling is, oh man, okay. So like I said, I don't really use, okay, so let me think. Okay, who wants to be next? Okay, Kristen, tell me about, yeah, same question. Tell me about a best friend or a coworker.
My best friend who has a dog just passed my Bestie.
So it seems like it's been really hot in Taiwan. And it feels like, are you, I guess, let's say that you tell me that you're sad about it, and it feels like you're pretty sad about it.
Yes, I am.
How did you and your best friend meet? What do you and him or her do together?
We met at a golf park.
Seems like you're a dog kind of person.
Say it is our.
It seems like you like dogs.
Yes, I like dogs.
So, all right, I'll stop. But labeling is taking what you're saying, and then I'm relabeling it with questions like, and it feels like, and it seems like, they're open-ended, and then you start talking more about it, okay? But I'm labeling it, okay? So I think, top 10 go-to labels. If you click that link, the idea is I don't want to speak for you, and I don't want to ask you the question and then you answer yes or no. I want you to say it, and the way for me to get you to say it is to relabel what you just told me with things like, and it feels like, it seems like, it looks like it's important to you, right? You always want to use like these value things. It looks like it's pretty important to you that, blah, blah, blah. Okay? So Chris Voss says that a lot. And like I said, I think you should watch his videos. I would say like, I actually do this, but I take it one step further. And I actually do, before I say that, does anybody have any questions on labeling?
I do.
Yes.
So, by role playing.
Yeah.
Why do you think recommend this method? Because it doesn't come naturally, or it actually kind of trigger a psychological response?
That's a great question. I mean, he taught the FBI negotiation course worldwide. I'm in Taiwan and speaking to all of you wonderful people. What he says works. He's got this Black Swan consulting group. It's world famous. What he says probably works. And I think I go back to like everybody's personality a little bit. I think, okay, so for me, I'll explain next. I do it a little differently. I shouldn't say I don't do this. I do it a little differently. But before I get to that, does anybody have any questions on labeling? Yes.
I think it's an easy way to make each other's temperature be the same. But kind of that you will be led by themselves, but not you will lead them. Just as you role play in a form of you play better.
Yes. Yeah. Like you want to get on that same level with them, but you want them to say it. Yeah. Annie?
So
So you're saying you can use this in a business setting as well, and you're mirroring and labeling during a professional conversation?
Yes. In fact, okay, yes, absolutely. You watch his videos, they have training videos. Like you can watch his Black Swan training videos in a group, and he'll like he has one of his teachers just label for like 10 minutes, and all that teacher is doing is last 3 words, you know, whatever you said, right? Like, oh, went to lunch in the community, and then you just keep talking, and it seems like you really like baseball, right? And what it is talking, and it's back to what's your name?
Reese.
Reese?
Yeah.
Ah, okay. So what Reese is saying, we're getting on the same level of emotion here. Chris Voss is really big about this. He's an FBI negotiator. For me to, you know, to negotiate out of that, I gotta get on the same level with the as an emotion. Yeah, Roger.
I think the case might be, you know, good fit for labeling is that when your client actually doesn't know what they want. So give you an example, right? So today I was, you know, I'm doing a pre-call with my clients, and then, you know, I'm trying to, you know, identify the potential pain points about your company. So I ask a very open questions. I say, hey, would you mind sharing with me a bit about how do you do customer campaigns, right? How do you segment your customer and, you know, prepare for a campaign that is targeted for those persona? And, you know, clients say, oh, ABC. So I would say, oh, so it sounds like to me that the automation of that segmentation might be a challenge for you. Is my understanding correct? And then the client just say yes. And say, oh, cool. So maybe tomorrow when we are doing the meeting, we can focus on the automation of your campaign. Do you think that is makes sense? Does that sensible to you? And they say yes. So, you know, the pre and post is that pre is I actually have no idea about, you know, what's a specific, you know, topic we can talk to them. But with that kind of labeling, I think can help you to better understand, or at least set a tone that you are in a good, better shape that you can pitch to the clients.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, in fact, so what you do is what I do. So I'm a little bit more direct. And as I watch Chris Voss's stuff, my understanding of him teaching this technique, like for example, right, when you said, like in your case, would it be valuable to you if we, you know, brought automation into your business cycle, right? Chris Voss would say not that much. Like he needs to get you to say it. So then it seems like question is, it seems like you have some concerns about automation. And then you gotta say that. Not me lead you, it's more you come out. And that's the big, at least that's what I see with his, you know, technique, is that he wants you to come out and say it. But in my experience, like that takes a long time, a little bit to what Andy said, like that takes a long time. And sometimes I can't direct that in the right way. So for my experience, I've done okay doing what you're saying, covering pain, relabeling pain in some form of a feature or application, right? Hopefully that's helpful. But yeah, but for Chris, he's like, that's why I like the mirroring to me is like, wow, that's a lot of talking. that's a lot of talking.
The text for making an anchor, I think is what his text for making an anchor.
Maybe, yeah, maybe. That maybe. He says a lot of stuff, right? And I, like I said, like I'm sure that it works really well. I would encourage everybody to watch it. Okay, probably a couple more. Oh, Bant. Okay, who knows Bant in this room? Yay! Who? Oh, no one's gonna answer who doesn't know Bant. Bant is budget, authority, need, timing. It is a methodology of qualifying prospects in a B2B setting. So this usually assumes that your prospect has multiple decision makers, a long sales cycle or something. Again, not just selling a bottle of water, okay? This is like basic stuff. You may not use it, but this is like fundamental B2B enterprise sales. It's called BANT, Budget Authority Need Timing. I put this here because like if you're in B2B, your head of sales should either know this or be implementing this. I won't spend too much time on it if a lot of people already know it, but for people that haven't seen it, yeah, please ask questions. Let's go through it. Budget. Okay, so a lot of people think like the budget. Okay, so basically, if I'm discovering a lead or a call, what I need to do is get the answers to budget, authority, need, timing. That's how I qualify whether or not I should spend time chasing this opportunity. Okay? So, budget, right? Budget, a lot of people think is like, do you have budget? That's not exactly right. Budget is more than do you have budget. You probably, if you're in a company, you have some budget. Your company has money. Budget is like, are you ready to spend money to solve this problem? And where is that money coming from? Whose budget? Okay, so that's a big difference. Budget is not like, do you have money to buy something? No, budget is more like, what are the, are you ready to solve this problem with money right now? You may not be. Authority, pretty easy. Who are you? Usually most people are like, are you the decision maker? Identify the DM. But there's more to authority, okay? If you're not the decision maker, then who am I talking to? Are you the business user? Are you the advocate? Are you the professional user? Right? There's different levels there, so identify that. Need and timing are much harder, usually, I found. Need, of course, is pain and value and all of that. So like, what is the need for you on this product? It could be to solve a problem, but to get back to you specifically in Band, like, you could need a promotion this year, and this deal gets you that promotion. That's a need, right? Not company-wide, but you-wide, or organization-wide, right? So I think, with experience, like some people that we're working with, their customers need to implement a different type of platform. That's the need. Meaning that they've committed, right? This quarter, I'm gonna implement a platform, now I'm just shopping. Okay. And then timing is, timing can be a lot of things, but timing is the implementation time. Is this the right time for a deal, right? What is the timeline? Let's walk through what the timeline is for all of this. Thoughts on Bant? And what do you guys think about Bant? Who uses Bant today? Okay, man, this is a bad room. Raise your hands if you use Bant today, because you should be. Okay, so if you don't use Bant, if you're not using Bant, then you should definitely read up on this. What this does, okay, by the way, what this does is it saves your time. Okay? If you don't use Bant and you're just talking to somebody, you may waste a lot of time with somebody that's not ready to buy, and not talking to the decision maker, doesn't have a budget, or is going to implement next year. It saves your time. Okay. Any questions? Okay. Yes.
So how do you know your clients' budgets? How much they can they want to buy your products? Do you know? How do you get it?
Ask.
Just ask.
Yeah. What? Hey, can you help me understand? Do you have a budget for a purchase like this? Which department is that budget coming from? What is the range of your budget? Right? Who controls that budget decision? Just ask. Yeah. In B2B, you can ask. Like most of the time, for most things, you can ask. Especially these things in B2B. Most people know Bing, and so then most people know that you're asking because of this, and so that a lot of times they'll just tell you. Okay, let's keep going. Oh, right angle selling. Okay, Bob, I think this is, yeah, okay. So right angle selling, Bob Fabio. I talked about Bob before with the Band-Aid and scratch on the arm. So Bob taught me one thing, and he calls this right angle selling, it's really simple. This is a very simple thing. This will be a 1-2 minute slide. But I've actually tried to look up right angle selling, and I cannot find anybody that talks about right angle selling the way that Bob taught me. So I don't know if he just made it up, or like doesn't exist, or I can't find it. So I'm gonna share with you this concept called right angle selling because I use it all the time. But it may actually be called right angle selling. Here's how it goes. So it's about pricing, usually. You're pitching something or you're trying to close something, you're almost there. And then what you do is you say, yeah, and other clients of ours use the same feature that you have. Or other clients or other people that we've seen in the market want the same thing as you. Again, this is very simple. All it is validation. But it's not me pitching to you validation. It's not you telling me validation. It's right angle. I'm telling you that other people in the market use the same feature or have the same pain that you do, right? Or maybe we negotiate on price. And I'm like, yeah, and typically our clients use that pay upfront annually, payment plans, right? Typically our clients do this. I make that, I leave it a little bit open so that you're like, oh yeah, I get some validation. Okay. It can be subtle. I use it all the time. I use it all the time. It is a supporting technique. It is not my main technique, right? I don't come today and, say, hey, let me tell you about the value of this automation feature because, 3 people down the street use this thing. That, to me, is too early, and it's not the primary technique I would go with. I go for value, I go for pain, try and solve your problem. But to close, at the end, I may go like, that makes sense. I can see how you use that, and your IT department does that. In fact, we've seen other clients in this market sector do the exact same thing. Any questions, comments? Anybody know if this is the right term, right angle selling? Or maybe you've used it?
I don't know the term, but it's super useful.
Super useful, right? Yeah.
Makes things a little bit less direct, and that's what typically happens. It's also really useful in Taiwan because Taiwan tends to focus a lot on price, and it's like, what can you songwo? What extra things can I get in the scope that's like freebies?
Yes.
So it's like we don't usually put this stuff in, but we could put it in. Or we normally do this at this rate, but it just makes it so you're not like directly giving them a direct
pitch. Yeah.
This is typically how we work. We take half down and half when we finish. It's just how we typically do it.
Yeah, it's been validated by something or someone else. Right. Yeah.
It sounds like a reference case to me.
What do you mean by that? Can you describe a reference case?
Tell you a story that one of my partners used this product or this service, and they are in the same industry. And they use our product, they use our service, and they get some cheap.
Like a case study. Yeah, so you're right. Like a case study is also referencing something, right? But for me, the nuance is, to me, right angle selling is the supporting thing at the end. It's not the primary thing. To me, a case study is the primary thing. So then I would try and pitch and sell and position and frame by saying, other people have gotten all of these results or ROI with what I'm trying to sell you today. That's more of a case study. That's more of a pitch. To me, right angle selling is it's very subtle. Yeah. Oh, usually it's like, you're right. Other people do it what you do, So it's like, yes, great job. Other people validate what you just said. It's that subtleness. Thoughts? Any thoughts? Alright, well think about it. Leland, you're gonna say something.
Oh, no.
Yeah, okay, alright. Okay, so thank you for coming tonight. Hopefully this was very valuable, right? We'll stay around, we'll network a little bit. There are definitely people in the room I think you guys should all meet or meet each other, right? How many people thought it was valuable tonight? Okay. Okay, cool. So I showed you 10 techniques, 5 high level, 5,000 feet.